But there are two problems that we know have persisted for long. One is that we have never had a robust emergency care system. It does not exist. And when you get yourself into emergency, you are on your own. That is one. The second thing, we have a law that make it almost compulsory, so to speak, for the provider to take up an emergency case, either do stabilization or, make sure that you save a life. But we also look at the books of accounts of majority of providers. They have huge debts that have come through because of their desire to fulfill that obligation of addressing an emergency need. So with that, then we thought that we need to come up with a product that helps the provider be willing at will to provide an emergency care. Majority of healthcare providers really want to save lives. Unless you come on, these are the ones in this room. But ideally, the ones I know, majority of them, they want to save lives. But there are also economic agents that have invested in their private facilities, for instance. And also, they know that by taking an emergency case, most likely, there is a high chance that it will be a bad debt. So those are the two main reasons that made us think about the emergency care fund. Now, what ideally have been happening also in the past is that NHIF had tried to provide ambulance services. But so somebody can get, you have your NHIF, which is a social insurance of some sort in the legacy time, and you get into the ambulance, but you are not sure where you are going. So you find these cases of people dying in ambulances. You are going loud from facility to facility at night. Some people tell you we don't have a bed. Others tell you we don't have whatever, we are full. Majority of these reasons, when we looked at them, the key problem is on who actually take the responsibility of actually covering for the cost incurred by this patient. And I also heard at that time people saying that is evil. But you see, you also place a provider in a place, they are trying to choose what to do because they'll take a bad debt that will force them to close down, or they'll take a bad debt, they'll refuse to take a bad debt, and they will be available tomorrow to provide services to other people. So it's a tricky balance that the provider is in at. They want to fulfill the obligation, but they are grounded. So now what is happening is that we need to come up with a robust emergency care package. And that is a package that should be optimized within the emergency care fund. And by optimizing, I mean, what is emergency? How should it be defined? When should the fund kick off? When should you move from emergency to come back to your insurer, so to speak? Because emergency is for everybody. Because even when you have a private insurance, a good one, sometimes what happens is by that time you are unable to provide information on who covers you, who pays for you, and all that kind of architecture. So the expectation, and I'm happy that there is this kind of a team, and I know there is another team that is also handling this piece of work, is to synergize these teams to come up with an optimized benefit package for emergency. What should it have? And what is emergency? Does it include when I have a snake bite? Is it an emergency? Is it not? When I have an accident, is it an emergency? Well, not. When I have a stroke, is it an emergency? Is it not? So we need to have a clear method. And I mean, you guys are the expert here. I only know the problem and I know the potential solution. The idea is that we have good technical people who have been working on emergency settings, and they should be able to come up with the right package of care, and this should be incorporated within the ongoing process. So currently, we are drafting the regulations to the chronic illness and emergency fund, the social insurance fund, and the primary health care fund. Now, if we lose this chance, I for sure cannot tell you the next time you have it. So one of the things you should be able to do here is have a communication on what you require to be included as part of the emergency. How should it be coordinated? What is the system of the infrastructure? What kind of ambulances are we talking about? How do people report an emergency episode? How is that communicated? How is it picked? How is it linked to the facility? There is a thinking among very many people that emergency services are addressed at the tertiary level because we have written chronic illness and emergency. But you know that emergency cases can be addressed in a level 1. Even 1. But 1 is not within the SHA framework. So the Social Health Authority framework, the community level is a referral kind of service. But all the way from level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know better than I do that they are able to provide emergency services. How does that package look like? Who make a decision on whether that is an emergency case or not? You know, in the past there have been money allocated through the exchequer for emergency. I don't want to say what that money end up doing, because in my definition, what they do is not emergency. Now that there is a fund that should purely be able to tackle the emergency cases, I would think that the best thing this meeting can also do is to brainstorm and have ideas, which this man can very well communicate to the other team so that they are incorporated. This is one team which I am in, and I believe we know very little. What we know is 2% or less. What you know could be 98. If you don't bring your 98, we make the wrong decision. And then you say, we failed. All right? So don't wait for that time. So my message for this morning is that the chronic illness and emergency fund is being operationalized. The act is very clear. You have a room to actually influence how that fund should work and what is necessary to put in, what is a must and necessary, and what is optional as the economic grow. Because you know that emergency cases as well as treatment is not cheap. So we also need to estimate. So all those things you will talk about, we need to know their costs. What does it mean in terms of the projected burden vis-a-vis the projected pay, so that we know how much of this can we shoulder. One of the things you will see from the past through the legacy NHIF is big talk. And we are really avoiding that within the health agenda, so that we don't promise what we cannot provide. So if we promise, we need to provide. But we need to do our homework. We need to use the existing evidence to make sure that we know what we are also saying. So we know the cost, we know the intervention, we know the burden projection, and I would think that even if we lack very good data, we have some data we can be able to use to estimate the resources that are required. So that is the critical illness and emergency fund. The fund, of course, will be split into two, to have the critical illness part that is largely addressing the chronic illnesses and the catastrophic expenditure of largely the malignancies, the cancers. That is where we have a lot of problems and we have no money. That's the reality. To treat cancer in this country 1 year, we require 85 billion shillings. We don't have it. All right? It needs to be mobilized. 85 billion to only reach 85,000 Kenyans. Because that's a caseload, annual caseload. So then the second part of that fund is where we have the emergency, and I think this is where this team become very, very important. Even how will this be identified is an emergency case in a facility because of a problem called supply-induced demand. Supply-induced demand is when a provider behaves in a manner likely to induce demand of a service. That is when an expectant mother goes to a facility and they have not even taken 2 minutes to see whether they can be able to give birth in normal or CS, completely because you know CS is expensive and you are a provider, you'll get some more money, you lash there and open up, all right? And then you bill. You see, you have induced a demand of a CS. It is a very big problem globally, the problem of inducing demand. So we can also induce emergencies. Okay? It is very possible to induce emergencies, and these providers are not saints. So there are a few saints we have there, so we want to take cognition of their existence. However, the majority who are not are the ones we want to provide registration for, so that regardless of your sainthood, you are aligned to the right process of doing things. So this is the time, ladies and gentlemen, good people, to have your voice be heard, to have your inputs be incorporated, and I am sure they will be incorporated, because if it's not you, then who else should be able to provide this much needed guidance on how we do the emergency care fund, then what should be included and such. So that is the much I think I would want to highlight this morning in the interest of time. But more importantly is that I don't know the method of channeling this request, but I really hold it dear that a congregation of this nature should not come out without a resolution, and that resolution, because it's timely, this is when this is happening, this week and next week. I'm sure my brother knows very well the work that is going on. So when this is agreed, please participate, come out. What I have discovered in this market, the main thing is sending yourself. You send yourself. So don't wait to be looked for. Nobody will look for you, by the way. But if you have passion on your area and you know how best it should be organized, that is why I'm saying you send yourself. So please remember, if you forget everything, remember sending yourself. And the other thing you should remember is that you are the best positioned to give us guidelines that will make the emergency fund be operationalized, be implementable, and then all Kenyans will be able to get emergency services and referral services in a way that meets the global standards. So you guys, you look global. Even the representation, it looks global. So we cannot expect otherwise from such minds. So with that, thank you very much for having me. Sorry, we are juggling between many meetings, but I'm happy to really have come. I have pushed for this fund with everything I had. And not because I know how it should be organized. It's because I know there are people who know how it should be organized. I may know how it will be financed, but how it should be organized, I'm sure there are people who know better than I do. So thank you very much, and God bless you.